Okay, hi everyone. We are now going to go over the residential property disclosure. By Ohio state law, every seller in the state of Ohio must fill this out before you sell a home. If by chance you haven't lived in the home, you have acquired the home from maybe an estate, your mom has passed away, a family member has passed away, maybe a friend has deeded their house to you. There are exceptions and exclusions, but if you have lived in the home, you will be filling out the 6 pages of the residential property disclosure. Please make sure the date up here in the upper right is 6/22. That is the most current version of the Ohio law that requires these 6 pages to be filled out by the sellers. So, page 1, you'll read through this. The seller, again, we're going to play, if you watch the lead-based paint training video, we're going to put the hat of a listing agent on. You represent the seller first, okay? You have to provide this form or these forms over to the sellers, and they have to fill them out. It is against we could lose our license if we suggest how to say things, what to say things, okay, how to say them. We haven't lived in the house, we have no idea. But my best recommendation is this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. As you go through here and answer these questions, I would suggest you identify the problem, when it happened, and what was the resolution. Those are the 3 things I always suggest to the sellers. They'll say, oh my gosh, my roof leaked last year. Great, you identify the problem, when did it occur, and what was the resolution? Okay, because it's going to come up from the agent that brings in the buyer. They're going to ask you, well, what happened with that roof leak? So be thorough with your sellers about identify the problem, when it happened, and what was the solution. Okay, so page 1 just states that obviously this is filled out by the owner, and you're not holding any agent responsible for anything that is not disclosed. Most lawsuits in this world of real estate happen because of the disclosures. So you must make sure that all questions are answered and have the explanations written. If there's not enough room as we move through these questions, just have them fill out an addendum or a 7th page that they typed up, and we could just say, hey, refer to the addendum at the end of this document. It happens all the time. Some sellers are going to be more thorough than others, but when in doubt, always remember, agents, disclose, disclose, disclose. The minute they say, oh, well, I forgot about X, it's got to go on here. Once you know about it, then you need to disclose it. So the first page just talks about that you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are going to answer all the questions and report anything that's affecting the property. Okay? Initial, or if it's one initial, and the date. That's page 1. Page 2, you're going to write the property address, the homeowner's name, the date, whether they are or are not occupying the property. And then if they are or are not, since when did they live there last, okay? You'll move on to water and sewer. And if there's anything on this property disclosures in my 19 years of selling real estate, water and roof, these are probably the most common places you'll see stuff that's written, okay? We live in Ohio, we have 4 seasons. Water is a home's worst enemy, and it will find its way in wherever it can. So we always want to make sure that we are getting our answers for the water. So whether it's on a public water service, maybe it's a well, and I think those are the only 2 in the state of Ohio. We don't have I haven't had anyone have their main water supply to a house be a pond or a cistern, but maybe, who knows? Do you know of any current leaks or backups? This is, they'll say yes or no, and then the number 1 missed question, okay, for the sellers is this question. Is the quantity of water sufficient for your household? They will always miss this. They will check off that, yes, my water supply is perfect, and then they jump to the sewers. So please be sure when you're double checking paperwork and your admins are double checking paperwork that all these questions must be answered. And they are going to get annoyed. They have to send it back to them because once you edit this in .loop, it knocks their signatures off and they have to re-sign it. But it's better than a lawsuit against Kelly Mickelstein and yourself. So please be sure that you're thorough. Moving on to sewers, you're going to ask, obviously most of the time you're going to have a public sewer or there might be a septic tank, okay? And if there's any leaks, again, another question to answer. We're going to move down to the roof and water intrusion. This is page 2 of 6. The roof, if there's any leaks, any water intrusion. Normally, this question at the bottom of page 2 and rolling on to page 3 will go hand in hand. You'll see a lot of this question say see above, which is really referencing here. We had water leakage in the basement. Oh, the water came in the one corner. Whatever it is, again, what was the problem? When did it happen? What was the resolution? Okay? You might also have a buyer ask for paid receipts for that, or what company did that, so make sure we have that information. So any questions about water? You'll move down, leaking pipes. Have you ever had the property inspected by mold? They may ask you, if you say yes, they're gonna say like, when'd you have it, and could you provide me with a mold test? It might eliminate a mold inspection on their purchase agreement. Structural components, this is key. Make sure the house is structurally sound. Anything with the basement. Sometimes I sold a house one time with a bowing basement wall. They had to hold the house up, take the wall out of the basement, and rebuild the wall. Okay, anything with the foundation, crawl spaces, or interior, exterior walls. Okay, they'll check off yes and no. Maybe they had a fire in the house or smoke damage. You know, they want to disclose that. Wood pest destroying insects. Maybe they get their house treated quarterly. I get my house treated quarterly for bugs in and out. They may want to say, yes, we do. We've had carpenter ants. We've had termites. Well, hopefully you didn't have termites, but you know, that's the big thing. Mice droppings, hornets, not carpenter ants, woodpeckers that peck into the wood, that damage the wood. You would write that here. And then the G section is all the mechanical systems. Anything with your electrical, you can read through the whole thing. Chimney, sub pump, central vac, security system, all of that. Okay, these are all the mechanical systems. The minute they check off yes, you have to write a description. And normally, please note, not longer than the past 5 years. It does say that on here, so if they say, well, our sprinkler system broke in 1978, you don't need to disclose that. It says right here, not past the 5 years. Any presence of hazardous materials, okay? If you sell a lot in the Heights maybe, Shaker, Cleveland Heights, you might have some asbestos or lead-based paint in the home, or they may not know. So again, they'll check off yes, no, or unknown. Maybe they had a radon test. Radon is an inert gas that comes up through the Earth's core, through cracks in the foundation and sub pumps. You wanna have to maybe check off radon, and if it did, the EPA levels are 4.0 and lower is passing, above that is failing. And you would have to get a radon mitigation system put in. We could talk more about that later. Again, we're initialing the bottom of each page. Bottom of page 2, bottom of page 3, and now we're gonna go on to page 4. Sometimes when we sell some land out in Geauga County or Ashtabula County, you might have an underground storage tank or an abandoned well, kind of when we're out in the country. You know, if they check off yes, we need to know more information about that. Any oil or gas mineral rights lease. Sometimes Gates Mills, Chesterland, they have merged properties where there is an oil well on the property and people are getting mineral rights. You're gonna have to ask about that. And if you're in a floodplain, lake coastal erosion, if maybe, you know, the house is eroding on a hill. If you live by the Shaker Lakes, you're in a floodplain. Your mortgage company will find this out and you have to get insurance, special insurance, extra. So you want to disclose that. Obviously, if there's any draining or erosion, if you've got flooding, settling, they'll note that. Any zoning or code violations, home HOAs, all of this whole section in L here is going to talk about that. If you live in an HOA, how much is it a month? How many, if there's assessments, how long it's going to be. If you have any Mayfield Heights, all the heights, Shaker, University, Cleveland, Garfield, Bedford, they all require a point of sale. You're going to talk about that. Maybe you're in a historic area like Chagrin Falls or Gates Mills downtown. That's a historic building. They might note that. And then boundary lines and encroachments. Sometimes this will come up in title that maybe the driveway encroaches 1 inch onto my neighbor's property. Okay, you're going to disclose that. And then any other material effects that maybe they're aware of that it just didn't ask, okay? You're gonna write that here. And again, initially, page 4 of 6. We move on to page 5 of 6, is just the final signature. And then page 6 of 6 is just reference points, excuse me, and websites and links that your clients can go to with regards to radon, with regards to lead, with regards to mold, asbestos, and urea formaldehyde, okay? That's, again, if you're the listing agent, these are the forms you're gonna have to fill out. Now, remove your hat now as the listing agent and we're gonna go to the buyer's agent, okay? You represent the buyer, you wanna write an offer, okay? Maybe your admin is setting up a loop for you You have to go into the supplements and upload all these documents into your loop so your buyer can now read what the seller has disclosed on their property. How many times, often not, you'll be out showing a house and they'll say anything on the property disclosures that we need to be aware about, okay? You should be looking at them when you're setting up the showings. Walk into a house and there's some water in the corner. Oh, guess what? The seller did say they had a leak in the living room and they're correcting it. Great, you've already addressed it, move on to the rest of the house, okay? Sometimes you're not going to know, but sometimes they've already disclosed it. A good listing agent will have this filled out to the T and have all the information you need. Again, we're now the buyer's agent, okay? You're gonna go through here, your buyer's gonna read this, and they too, after reading it, will initial on the other side where it says purchaser's initial, whether one buyer or two buyers, okay? They'll see that maybe they occupy the home, they didn't occupy the home. I showed a house today where they said the seller hasn't lived there in 20 years, and they wrote that right there. The disclosures were empty. Maybe at times they are. Maybe it's an investor. I have investment properties. I physically haven't lived in the home, but I do know if I put a new roof on, I'm going to disclose that. I do know if there was a leak in the basement, I am going to disclose that. And a good homeowner and a good investor will do that. So your buyers will read through here and they will initial the bottom of each page. 3 of 6, 4 of 6, 5, right here at the bottom, and then 6 of 6. We have boxes as well. Most brokerages do not have these at the bottom. We do at Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan. So if your seller hasn't signed, then there's no need for you to sign. But just remember, as a good rule of thumb, anywhere in the contract, the buyer initials, seller initials, buyer initials. Change of price, anything on the disclosures. Sometimes you've had your property listed for a while, and guess what? Oh my gosh, the central air went, and we have to replace it. Now you're amending the property disclosures. So you could either put yes with an initial and date, and then they write something out, or just easily drop an addendum saying, since we've been listed, our central air went out, and now we have to disclose that change and that repair, okay? So again, as a buyer's agent, your job is to make sure this is all filled out. If it isn't, it's okay to call the listing agent and say, hey, listen, there are some questions that aren't answered here, and I need your seller to answer them for my buyer, okay? And as always, if there's any questions, please contact me regarding the 6 pages of the residential property disclosures.